Welcome back, gamers, to Top 10 Gaming. I'm your host, Johnny Rogers. If you happen to be new here, we post daily content on all things gaming, so if you're down with that, then tap that subscribe button to never miss another video. Plus, make sure you stay all the way until the end because you won't believe how dumb our #1 spot is. And leave us a comment down below with what the worst video game that you've ever played was. While you ponder that, let's jump into today's list of the top 10 dumbest video game mechanics nobody used. At number 10, refuse to play.
In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail.
Overall, the Stanley Parable is an incredible game and has many mechanics that are quite thought-provoking to the point where you'll question your own reality. For the majority of the game, you'll want to go against what the narrator is telling you to do, and as a result, the narrator reacts and directs you in new ways. However, a dumb mechanic that was added in is triggered upon the player deciding to do nothing. Nothing, you say? Nothing. If you refuse to leave the area that you start in, the narrator will take you out of the game altogether. The game will drop you in the most confusing new game you'll ever play. There's a cardboard cutout of a happy baby that's slowly crawling towards a fire, and for 4 real-time hours, the game will punish your lack of interest in the Stanley Parable by making you save this baby over and over again. Once you've hit the 2-hour mark, and yes, some have actually done that, the game will change, and instead of saving a baby, you'll have to save a puppy from falling into acid. For whatever reason, if you have 0 things to do with your day and get through this 4-hour torture mechanic, the game will reward you with artistic enlightenment. If you happen to fail these games, the narrator will take things up a notch with the torture aspect and make you play Minecraft. Ugh. What a dumb mechanic. In at number 9, camera mode. Why this became a mechanic of video games is beyond me. Perhaps it all began with Pokemon Snap, but it should have stopped there. If we're playing a video game, why would the developers think that we would want to stop the immersive gameplay to take a photo of fake scenery? This mechanic really becomes useless with the integration of live recording and screenshots that many of the newer consoles will allow you to do with any game. In some games, they go as far as dedicating a photo mode trigger in your control settings. This seems like an enormous waste of potential for literally anything else that could have been in its place. If anything, having a camera mode button takes the mechanic from being a useless dumb thing to becoming a source of frustration. I can't count the number of times I've accidentally pressed the camera button midway through playing. Let's do away with this mechanic ASAP. In at number 8, all can be killed. Most games understand the necessity of not allowing your playable character to just kill everyone they see. If the game is mainly story driven, then that means that there will undoubtedly be some characters that will be necessary to complete the game. These pivotal characters are given what's called a trigger, meaning that the protagonist can't harm them in any way. However, the game Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind throws all of this logic out the window when they decided to use a game mechanic that took away all triggers. So many people would get caught doing something nefarious like stealing, and when trying to escape, believe that the only way out was to kill the person accusing them. Unfortunately, many times the character they killed turned out to be necessary to progressing in the game. Elder Scrolls says, "Oh, you can't beat the game because you got a little too trigger happy? Oh well, too bad for you." It's a ridiculous game mechanic that is so dumb it needs to never be repeated again. And at number 7, survival skills. The survival skill mechanic for Fallout New Vegas was meant to allow players to create powerful poisons and consumables to increase your skills in the wasteland. Sounds fairly straightforward, but as many realize, this is a largely useless game mechanic. At the start of the game, they make a really big deal out of the survival skill and its importance. There's even a large section of the tutorial that teaches you how the whole thing operates. The mechanic is very demanding that you spend valuable skill points in order to craft specific items in the game. However, for the majority of these higher ranked items, they aren't really worth the struggle. Most players just never even bother to invest anything into the survival skill mechanic, and as a result, there was really no repercussions with the gameplay. In at number 6, the game lives on.
Major, I found the end. He's dead.
What the hell happened?
Maybe it was from old age.
You mean you kicked the bucket in the middle of a battle?
Maybe.
The Metal Gear Solid series is synonymous in the gaming world with secrets and silly jokes that make the series that much more entertaining. They got a lot of things right with this series, but for Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater for the PS2, there was a mechanic that was so ridiculous it'll mess with your head. Unbeknownst to players, the game was actually still going on even when they shut off their consoles. Whatever amount of time had passed while you weren't playing the game was the same amount of time that would pass within the actual game. So meta. It was a mechanic that attempted to mirror reality to the most extreme extent. Upon returning to your gameplay, many were flabbergasted that some of the more elderly characters they had recently interacted with had suddenly died of old age. Specifically, a character known as the End would die on players while waiting for you to turn on the game just to fight him. Even upon joining back into the storyline, other characters would be quick to speak to you with regret that due to your extended absence, you never got to face off with the world's greatest sniper. The dumbest part of this mechanic is that because you have a real life, whole sections of the game would be skipped just because you wanted to take a break. And at number 5, the Horse Whisperer. Horse taming becomes an available mechanic in Red Dead Redemption during the mission Wild Horses when Bonnie McFarlane gives John Marston a lasso. Now this whole list could just be dumb mechanics that Red Dead included, but for the sake of beating a dead horse, let's just focus on this one. The whole horse taming mechanic was beyond boring, and for the most part, as big of a deal as the game makes it, they largely push it aside as the story goes along. Many players didn't want to be bothered with the tedious process of catching a wild horse and breaking it in, that they would just stick with the default one. Plus, once you learn the skill, you don't really need to ever use it again. There's not even a mission later on that requires you to act on this. And at number 4, no do-overs. We are all guilty of losing or not liking the end result of a game and immediately deciding to restart the console to just start from the last save point or sometimes from scratch. Undertale added in a mechanic specifically to address this rage quit epidemic. Everything in the Undertale world, including the storyline, would adjust based on the characters you decided to kill or spare. As a result, this impacted how the game would handle its save points. The interesting thing with this game was that the majority of your problems could be resolved without any violence at all, although it would have been nice if the game explained that from the get-go. Many people when playing ended up killing very key players before even leaving the very first section of the game, and upon coming to the realization that they just messed up royally, gamers would delete their save and attempt to start the game over. What we soon found out was that the game and the characters within the game, much like Metal Gear Solid, would remember all of your actions before deleting the save. How? I don't know. This would create new dialogue and even resulted in the monsters in the game teasing you about trying to restart your game. And at number 3, useless torches. For this dumb video game mechanic, Dark Souls 2 had a big time fail. They introduced this new torch lighting system that was meant to assist players when walking through what appeared to be the impenetrable darkness. The game actually forced you to choose between using their torch or a shield to see better. Yeah, I think we'll go with the torch. Although before the game was released, there was a technical downgrade to the point where the darkness went from something you feared to something that you were just annoyed with. Players found that most of the darker portions of the game where you were supposed to need this torch were actually just well lit enough that you could get by without one. So because of this, the game mechanic became absolutely useless and no one ended up ever using it. They even dedicated a portion of your inventory just for this dumb torch. And at number 2, fix your stats.
Another vault. This Vault 13. Where is it located? That must be your IQ on your jumpsuit, not a vault number.
In a majority of role-playing games, the developers make sure to have a stats section for your character. It's a place where you can see your levels of strength, stamina, charisma, luck, and intelligence. Obviously, based on the levels of each of these stats, your gameplay is affected. If you're too weak, then you can't match up with your enemies. If your charisma is down, you'll have a hard time winning over the NPCs in the game. But the one that we never really considered as being an important fixture is your character's level of intelligence. Fallout, on the other hand, put a prime focus mechanic to to operate around your character's intelligence. Within the first 2 games of the series, if you have a lower IQ, the game will relentlessly punish you for this. It literally makes you too stupid to know what is happening in the game. Even when your character responds to others, it's pure gibberish. The reason no one ever uses this mechanic is because if you're too dumb to play, how are you even going to make it through the story? Your enemies will even take pity on you when you attempt to attack them. How embarrassing. Lastly on our number 1 spot, Skyrim Lumberjack. Most games pride themselves on how immersive their game is. It's what we always hear at these big gaming conferences when they're releasing a new game. They do this either by way of beautiful graphics or a deep storyline that lets people lose themselves within it. Bethesda's Skyrim though completely missed the mark on this fine line of immersive gameplay. They packed it full of reality that made us wonder multiple times, wait, why am I doing this right now? The whole chopping wood for money followed by the mundane cutscene of hauling a log of wood to saw it is the definition of dumb. It's a lazy mechanic that does nothing to contribute to the overall story or gameplay in any way whatsoever. And that has been the top 10 dumbest video game mechanics that nobody used. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, show us some love by tapping that like and subscribe button. Plus, leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on this list. And for more videos like this one, all you gotta do is click that playlist on your screen. From Top 10 Gaming, I'm Johnny Rogers. Until next time, take care.